Hey, today we're gonna be talking about my bike crash history. Well, not all of it, but at least 3 events that I remember very distinctly that were kinda weird to me. You'll see what I mean. Now, you may notice this is not a live commentary, and I only am doing this because I've tried recording this video while playing a game at the same time. This is currently my 6th attempt at recording this video. All the other attempts were made while I was playing a game, and I just got distracted or lost in my commentary that I have to repeat the story so many times just to make sure that I didn't miss anything out. Anyways, let me know how you're doing today, and I am gonna be doing more videos like these, whether they're live commentaries or, you know, background commentaries like this one. And this is because in my last video, if you watched the whole way through, you will know that I have decided to take a slight break from YouTube just so then, you know, I can adapt to my university life, as well as take a much needed break from, you know, the burden that is this platform. I'm still gonna be streaming a lot, so, you know, keep an eye out both on YouTube and on Twitch. And I've got 12 videos planned, including this one for the next 6 weeks, so, you know, that's a lot of stuff. Now, bike crashes. I've had a lot of bike crashes over my life. First one that I currently remember is one that I had when I was 6 years old, and I remember having more before. I just can't remember exactly what caused the bike crashes. But we're only going to be talking about 3 events. The first story will take us back to 2017. It was around the time when I was either 13 or 14. I'm not sure which. It was late in summer, and my birthday is late in summer, so it could have been one or the other, but it was definitely in June time. I'm just not sure what side of the month. Now, I was just cycling with my family. We used to do that quite a lot that summer, and I was lagging behind a little. If you've cycled with people before, especially on pavements as opposed to on the road, and even on the road technically, it's so easy to fall behind, and that's completely normal. Though my closest brother was around 30 meters ahead of me, so when I crashed, which I'll get to how it happened in a bit, he just kept going. He did not care. He did not even hear me. So we were just riding past a park near where I live, and I wasn't even going that fast. We had just crossed the road. The reason why we had split off was because half of my family crossed the road and me and my other brother was still there. But I stopped for a second to get a drink of water because I had one of those. So I just took a quick sip of water, and then I started cycling again. Now, the floor wasn't really that slippery. There were a few dead plants. Again, this is summer. As soon as trees bear their fruit or whatever, they often shed stuff. Plus, leaves always drop their limbs anyway. But it wasn't incredibly slippery like it would be in autumn, or if you're American, you'd call the season fall. I don't know why. I mean, it makes sense, fall. Everything falls on the ground. Why don't we call it that? Just reaching over to turn on my lava lamp, don't mind me. And I was just pedaling along. And out of nowhere, my bike slipped. But it slipped sideways as if something was on the ground that caused it to slip. Now, that really shocked me, and I fell down with the bike, my leg underneath it. Now, luckily I didn't break any bones, but I did get a pretty big graze on my face. Like, it wasn't something that wasn't obvious. It was something that was literally just, whenever someone saw me, they just looked straight at the wound, nothing else. Now, the weird thing about this crash is that I actually crashed right in front of a bus stop. Now, there were a lot of people at that bus stop, yet none of them, I kid you not, none of them did a thing. They all just stared blankly at me. If you've ever studied psychology or are familiar with a lot of things psychology related, which I am, of course, just geeking out here, don't mind me, you would know of something called the... Oh, for God's sake, I forgot the name! You will know of something called the bystander effect. And this is something that affects a lot of us. It's basically where you see something happening, but because no one else is intervening, you don't intervene. And I want you to think about this because a later bike crash I'm going to be talking about kind of went a lot differently. In terms of injuries, again, there was that graze on my face, and I also had injured my leg a little. Like, there were a couple cuts here and there, and I'm pretty sure I had a graze on my knee as well, but it's not like I haven't had those before. But what are knees for? Then there was also the fact that I had a bad wrist because of a previous incident I had on a trampoline where I landed on my wrist. So, my wrist kind of hurt a bit as well. Next story. So, this was actually a couple years ago. This is actually 2 summers ago now that I think of it. So here's me at 16 years old, and at the time I used to cycle literally every day. It was a really good summer, I must say. Literally, that was probably the best summer I've had before the whole COVID thing. Honestly, if COVID wasn't a thing, summer would have been so much better last year as well. And this year was a bit disappointing though. Though we're having a really good week in terms of weather in the UK. If anything, it feels hotter than summer and we're in September. And I used to always cycle on the same route. Now, part of this route, there was an emergency station. I don't even know what they're called. Basically, there was an ambulance station right next to a firefighting station. If anyone that's watching this video is friends with me, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's near a Tesco. Anyway, I was just cycling along, and this area has a massive drop curb because it's kind of like crossing a road almost. It's like a driveway but a road. It's really hard to explain. If you don't know what a drop curb is, I'm going to put an image on the screen. It's like those things where, you know, the pavement just gets down to the same level as the road just to make it easier for people that are using different kinds of vehicles, wheelchairs, or pushchairs. Or just for people that are blind as well, because it can be really helpful to not have a sheer 10cm drop whenever you walk everywhere. Now, this drop curb was a tiny bit too high up. Like, there was about a 3 to 5 centimeter gap from the floor, which is nothing really major for a bike. Especially a bike that had a wheel that had a diameter of about 35 centimeters-ish, so it wasn't a small wheel. And I was just cycling along. I was going quite fast. Now, I should probably give some context before this next part. So before leaving the house, I was just, you know, checking my bike out, and it had a bit of an issue when it came to the brakes. For some reason, the wheels had twisted a tiny bit, which meant that the brakes kept touching them. This was both on the front and the back wheel. It was more prevalent on the front wheel, though, which is a bit more dangerous than it happening on the back wheel. Like, say you're going fast, and all of a sudden your wheel jams, you're going flying. But it wasn't really that big. It was a tiny bit wobbly when I left the house, which I had second thoughts of which kind of gave me second thoughts as soon as I left the gate, but I was like, it's fine, I'm not really going that far, or I'm not that hectic a driver anyway, I'm not really going to bump my wheel that much. Oh boy. So, I hit this curb. Nothing happened. Until literally 10 meters later, right, my bike's front wheel fell off. And again, this is somewhere else where I'm gonna say, pay attention to the details here, because a lot of things seem to repeat themselves or oppose themselves in this video. So the wheel actually fell onto the road, and so did my bike. So I was on the floor, right? Just lying on my side, still sitting on my bike, and I had to try and lift it off the road because there were cars coming as well. This wasn't like, you know, like just a normal road. This was a full-on highway. It wasn't that active at the time of the day, so I was kind of lucky with that, but it was kind of chaotic. I guess highway is the wrong word to use it. In the UK, we call these A roads. I don't know what they're called anywhere else, but it's basically a road like this, where there's a lot of traffic here and there, with a speed limit of 40 miles an hour, which is around, I think, 70 kilometers an hour. I'm not sure. So I just had to lift those while I was on the floor, and man, was I in pain. This time I had nothing on my face, somehow, but I had a massive, I mean massive graze on the whole of my shoulder. So, imagine this is a shoulder, right? The colored in part is literally the whole affected area, and this is just a front view. It's really weird to find a top view image, but just imagine that on the other side as well, and bear in mind that my shoulder is about, I want to say, whoa, I'm skinny, man. About 7 centimeters thick, which, you know, isn't that much, and it was probably a bit smaller back then, but I won't assume it was that much smaller. This was when I was 16, I'm 18 now. But yeah, unfortunately, I had no way to get home, because this place was also a mile and a half away from my house. So, what did I do? I found an alleyway that, you know, had a few trees growing on the side. I don't really know if I want to call it an alleyway. It was more of a forest footpath-ish. And, yeah, I just dumped the bike. That was a temporary solution, though. My brother came back to get it after. It's just that I couldn't take it home because literally my body was in pain. And I just couldn't be bothered to, you know, think about the now in that situation. I was like, later. I'm gonna do everything later. I just need to get home right now. Anyway, that was a very eventful time. I believe I had a couple other injuries as well. Just can't remember them, which is really bad. But I don't remember them. I definitely hurt my elbow if I hurt my shoulder. And probably my knees as well. I may have, you know, gotten a few bruises. But it wasn't terrible. It was worse than the first time for sure though. And the third time. This actually happened 2 months ago. So this is gonna be an interesting one for sure. So for context, I haven't cycled since the whole event that I just talked about. And I really want to get back into cycling, but I never could find the time. And my bike was also broken, so I had to borrow my mum's bike, but Honestly, I didn't mind too much. That was something I did after that first accident as well, but didn't really like using it if I could help it, because I don't know, it took a lot more work to cycle with that one. It was a heavier bike. It wasn't really that comfortable to ride on either. It had no suspension. It was one of those, like, you know, average city bikes, which for a guy that liked cycling on dust paths and, you know, all sorts of areas that were, you know, cool and foresty and all that, I found it really difficult to, you know, not get a headache every time I came home. So I went out with one of my friends who wanted to go cycling. This friend of mine is actually moving away from the country for university, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start cycling again and spend some time with a friend that I likely won't see for years now. So, you know, it was a win-win. So I thought, let's do this. And we went cycling. It was a ton of fun, might I add. And on my way back, so we left off at a train station, because he lived near that train station and I lived about 5 minutes away by bike, and it was a smooth ride home, actually. I don't know why my voice just went so high there, but it's my voice. You probably heard it so many times by now, you're used to it. And it was a really smooth ride home. I was riding on the road, for context, and the road had literally been re-asphalted. I don't even know if that's a word, but they literally took off the old asphalt and put on new asphalt, so it was as flat as it could possibly be. As smooth, I should say, not flat. Roads that are flat are practically impossible because of the curved earth, though your opinions may vary depending on what you believe in, you know, the whole curvature of the earth and stuff, you know who I'm talking about. But there was a road bump at some point, and again, I must say, this road was literally remade. So the road bump was not that intense. It was literally a slight incline, that's it. Especially on a bike where, you know, you're not really going that fast, and your wheels aren't really that wide where you feel the bump. It was smooth. Then literally, I hit the bump, and then my front wheel fell off. Now, the weird thing about this is that this bike had literally not been used for months, which could have been either a good or bad thing. A good thing in that, you know, there was no reason for it to fall off because the wheel was in perfect condition the last time I'd used it, and I'd pumped it before the ride. Or it was a bad thing because of the fact that the bike had literally been in a closed area with other stuff around it for a long time. I said months earlier, what I really should have said was almost 2 years, but it was a long time since it had been used. It was likely to fail, and I should have thought about that. So yeah, my front wheel fell off. This was in front of a gas station, actually. Well, Americans call it gas station. I don't know why I called it that. Petrol station, okay? Petrol station. Now, the brand this was Texaco, but, you know, it wasn't really about the brand, I guess. Now, this station has a car wash, and it's really close to my house. It was like a 7-minute walk for me. I'm a fast walker, so for me, 7 minutes is nothing. But it was fairly close. But literally, the guy from the car wash, which, for context, of the people that saw me crash, was the one that was the furthest away, heard me, and he literally ran out to me to ask me if I was okay. It was literally something I couldn't believe. The guy seemed Eastern European. He was really nice. And then the other 2 people that saw me also intervened, and one of the people that was inside the shop looked outside and, you know, saw the whole thing that came about, and he came out to help me out as well. Now, these guys were honestly the best people I've ever seen in terms of, you know, just helping out a complete stranger. That's something you really don't see nowadays, especially in today's society where, you know, everyone believes in independence and, you know, I don't live with my parents anymore. Look at me. They could have easily been in their mid to late 20s, if not early 30s. So, you know, they were really immune to this kind of mentality. And they were really nice, honestly. They offered me water for free, might I add. And they also got me a couple bandages and, you know, things to help protect my wound on my way home. And honestly, they were really nice. In fact, they were literally not letting me carry my bike. They were, like, picking it up for me. They were helping me up just in case I was concussed or anything, which I wasn't. I didn't hit my head. I was close to, but I didn't hit my head, luckily. However, what I did hit was my elbow. And it wasn't a smooth transition from, you know, the air to the ground either. Trigger warning, I'm gonna just describe my wound quickly. I'm not gonna make it too long, literally just skip 10 seconds. I've literally got a really long scar on my elbow, which almost looks like some sort of, you know, weird glass or stab wound. It's just, you know, someone's just taken a piece of glass and just scraped it along my arm. I'm probably shouldn't have said that. I'm gonna put a trigger warning. My elbow literally swelled so much, I could barely fold it. And this was recently after I started working at the fast food place I work at, which, if you watch my streams, you probably know that I started working. and it was really difficult to work for the next few weeks, I'm not gonna lie. But I pushed through. My wound is still swollen, though I'm not sure if it's just... Though I'm not sure what could have caused it. Maybe a part of my muscle has just moved into a different location. I don't know. I don't really care, though, because my arm works as normal, and honestly, that's all I need. Maybe it's just the way it always was and I never noticed until this injury. Who knows? Now, I'd also really badly injured my knee, and this meant I couldn't kneel down for a really long time. In fact, I found it really hard to even squat down whenever I need to pick up something from the ground. So, it wasn't particularly enjoyable, but it went fine. Ish. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This was actually really fun to record because, you know, this is the first time I'm recording a voiceover off script, and I've got the whole house to myself, so I can be as loud as I want. Okay, goodbye, or watch this video on screen now. I think you might like it.